I checked my balance after family reunion and saw it was drained to 0.99. Be happy we used it, my sis said. That sentence isn't just a title for me. It's a wound that still stings every time I think of it. I remember standing in my small apartment that night, shoes still dusty from the family gathering, heart still warm from all the hugs, stories, and laughter we'd shared. Then, with the most casual reflex, I pulled out my phone, tapped my banking app, and waited for the numbers to glow on the screen. What I saw made my knees weak. My entire savings money I had sweated through endless overtime shifts to gather was gone. All that stared back at me was 0.99, a cruel reminder of the work I had put in and the trust I had carried into that reunion. I leaned against the wall, blinking hard, certain it had to be some mistake. I refreshed the app. The numbers stayed the same. A strange buzzing filled my ears, that eerie silence people talk about when shock hits so deep that sound itself feels muffled. I scrolled through the transactions, and that's when the realization slowly unfolded. The card tied to my account had been swiped over and over again for restaurant bills, shopping sprees, liquor stores, even hotel bookings. My chest tightened with disbelief. I muttered out loud, "This can't be real," but it was. My own family had partied through my savings. The first name that popped into my mind was my sister Clara. She had been unusually cheerful at the reunion, laughing the loudest, handing out extra plates of food, as if she were sponsoring the whole evening. She had a way of doing things grandly, even when she didn't have much herself. My gut twisted. I picked up my phone, dialed her number, and when she answered, I didn't even manage a greeting. "Clara, did you use my card?" I asked, my voice trembling between rage and disbelief. Her response was chilling. She chuckled a carefree, unbothered laugh and said, "Be happy we used it. At least it went to the family." For a moment, I didn't even know how to react. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone pressed to my ear, her laughter echoing in my head. She spoke like I was supposed to be proud they'd drained me dry, as if my sacrifices didn't matter, as if the hours I'd spent working under fluorescent lights, coming home with sore feet and tired eyes, were nothing more than fuel for their indulgence. I wanted to scream, but all I managed was a whisper. "Why would you do that, Clara?" She didn't answer the question. She only said, "You'll survive. You always do." Clara and I used to share everything growing up. We wore hand-me-down clothes, split snacks when we had any, and promised each other that when we grew older, we'd never let the world make us selfish. Now here she was, stealing the very thing I'd bled for. Betrayal doesn't always come with knives or guns. It comes in the voice of someone you trust telling you to be grateful they stole from you. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, replaying every moment of the reunion. I remembered the laughter around the dining table, the playful teasing about my quiet lifestyle, the endless toasts to family forever. I remembered Uncle Raymond patting my back, joking that I was the responsible one who'd one day carry us all. And suddenly it all made sense. They all knew whose money was greasing the wheels of their fun, and none of them said a word. He woke up the next morning with a pounding headache. The smell of leftover food from the reunion still lingered in my kitchen because I had packed some plates to take home. As I warmed a plate of jollof rice, my phone buzzed with new notifications from the bank. More transactions, overdraft attempts, pending charges. My chest burned. I couldn't let this go on. I called Clara again, but this time she didn't pick up. I tried 2 more times, silent. Then she texted, "Stop disturbing me. It's just money. You'll make more." I slammed my phone on the table, anger bubbling in my throat. But beneath the rage was an ache of knowing that the people I had trusted most, the people I thought would guard my heart, had stripped me bare without hesitation. I needed answers, or at least some sense of clarity. When I walked in, my mother was humming in the kitchen, stirring a pot of stew. She greeted me warmly, but I could see it in her eyes. She knew. My father was lounging in the sitting room, pretending to be engrossed in the television. I sat down and asked directly, "Did you know Clara took my money?" My mother froze, spoon midair, then slowly lowered it. My father coughed awkwardly and mumbled, "Well, it was for the reunion. Everyone needed help." My chest tightened again. Everyone needs help. So you all decided to help yourselves to my account, without even asking me. My father avoided my gaze. My mother tried to soothe me. It's family, son. Money comes and goes, but family stays. I almost laughed. The irony was suffocating. If family really stayed, why did they strip me down to less than $1 without my consent? It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about the betrayal. The way they justified it, the way they treated me like a well they could draw from whenever they pleased. And the worst part was that they didn't even feel guilty. Back at my apartment, I sat by the window and watched the city lights flicker on as night approached. I thought of all the times I had supported my family in small, quiet ways, paying my cousin's school fees when he was almost sent home, covering my father's hospital bills once when his blood pressure spiked, helping Clara when her rent was overdue. I never once broadcasted it. I just did it because that's what family meant to me. But now, they have turned my generosity into entitlement. Tears blurred my vision. So I wiped them away quickly, ashamed of crying, but I couldn't stop. I whispered to myself, how could they do this to me? Over and over, like a prayer. The silence of my apartment felt heavier than ever. I realized I was completely alone at that moment. And in that loneliness, something shifted inside me. I couldn't undo the betrayal. I couldn't make them regret it, with tears or begging. But I could make sure they understood that my kindness was not a bottomless pit. The betrayal had cracked something open in me. For the first time, I considered that maybe loving family didn't mean letting them walk over me. Maybe being strong didn't mean absorbing every hurt in silence. Maybe dignity meant drawing lines no one dared to cross again. I stared at my phone, scrolling through the bank app again, memorizing each transaction, noting the locations and times. My tears dried, my heartbeat steadied. A strange calm came over me, the kind of calm that only arrives after the worst storm has passed. I whispered again, but this time with resolve. They think it's just money. I'll show them it's more than that. I had cried, shouted, questioned, begged for understanding the night before, but all of that did nothing to refill my account or restore my dignity. This time, I wasn't going to drown in self-pity. I was going to act. As I sat at the edge of my bed, scrolling through the long list of transactions, I realized that every single one of them was a breadcrumb, a trail leading directly to those who thought my savings were their playground. It wasn't just money missing, it was evidence, and I had it in my hand. I decided my first step would be the bank. I dressed quickly, put on a clean shirt, even though my mind was heavy, and walked out into the morning sun. The bank's marble floors echoed with every step I took, as if reminding me of the weight of my decision. When I got to the counter and explained what had happened, the teller's face turned serious. She guided me to a private desk where a manager listened carefully as I laid out the story. My voice cracked a few times, not from weakness, but from anger I was still swallowing. The manager nodded slowly, tapped into my account records, and finally said, "We can freeze your account immediately, but you need to file a formal fraud report." But here was a professional, reducing my family's actions to what they truly were: frauds. I filled out the report with trembling hands, writing Clara's name under primary suspect. It felt unreal. That name had once been tied to laughter, inside jokes, late-night secrets. Now it was tied to crime. When the freeze was confirmed, I felt the first wave of relief wash over me. No more charges could go through, but it was only the beginning. The bank handed me a printed list of all the transactions, with locations and receipts attached. "If you choose to take this further," the manager explained, "these will help law enforcement." I thanked him and walked out, clutching those papers as if they were gold. I knew I needed to prepare myself emotionally for what was next. Reporting family wasn't something anyone dreamed of. The thought of Clara's face when police knocked on her door made my stomach churn. Yet, I reminded myself of the text she had sent. "Stop disturbing me. It's just money." That text had burned away every last trace of hesitation. She had mocked my pain, and now she would taste accountability. I spent the afternoon tracing the purchases. I recognized some addresses immediately, like the seafood restaurant, where Clara had once complained she could never afford a full platter. There it was on my statement, $276 charged at 8:34 p.m., the night of the reunion. I shook my head bitterly. Other entries made me angrier. boutique clothing stores where she and maybe even her friends had splurged, beauty salons, even 2 different liquor stores. One entry almost made me laugh despite myself, a $50 charge at a karaoke bar. I could picture my cousins belting out off-key songs, while I sat at home completely unaware that I was sponsoring their fun. That laugh quickly faded into something sharper. I took photos of everything, lined up the receipts on my table, and even cross-checked the times with selfies they had posted on social media that same night. Clara had tagged herself at the seafood restaurant. Around the same time, the charge hit my account. It was almost too easy to connect the dots. When I finally walked into the police station the next day, my hands were steady. The officer on duty looked skeptical at first when I said my family had emptied my account. He asked, "Are you sure it wasn't just permission gone wrong? Like they thought they could use it?" I slid the receipts across the desk, along with screenshots of Clara's mocking texts. The officer raised his eyebrows and nodded slowly. "This is serious. We'll open an investigation." For the first time since that night, I felt I wasn't carrying the burden alone. I left the station feeling lighter, though I knew storms were ahead. The news traveled faster than I expected. By the time I returned home, my phone buzzed with calls and messages from relatives. Some were shocked, others were furious, and a few even tried to guilt-trip me. Aunt Miriam texted, "Family doesn't take family to the police." My cousin Daniel wrote, "You could have just asked for the money back quietly." I ignored them all. The silence from Clara, however, was loudest of all. 3 days later, the police made their first visit. They went straight to Clara's apartment, and from what I later heard, she tried to laugh it off at first, saying, "He's exaggerating, we're family." But when they showed her the receipts with her name linked to the purchases, her laughter dried up. I wasn't there, but I imagined the look on her face, the same smirk she had worn when she told me to be happy we used it, now melting into fear. Word spread through the family like wildfire. Suddenly I wasn't the quiet cousin who always worked too hard. I was the one who had dared to put a mirror to their greed. Old family group chats lit up with debates. Some defended me, saying I had every right. Others cursed me for shaming the family name. But for once I didn't flinch. Their judgment couldn't wound me more than Clara's betrayal already had. One day you're clinking glasses with your relatives, laughing about Aunt Mabel's midnight cookie disasters, and the next day you're piecing together evidence against them. Life has a way of showing you that love without boundaries becomes exploitation. I whispered to myself again, "This is not revenge, this is justice." And somehow that distinction gave me peace. Receipts linked not just to Clara, but to cousins, even an uncle who had used my card for groceries the day after the reunion. Each revelation stung, but it also hardened me. I realized they hadn't just taken advantage of me, they had conspired inside. Every relative who swiped my card without calling me was guilty of the same betrayal. The police summoned me several times to give clarifications, and each time I walked in with my head held higher. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the witness building a case. The officers respected my thoroughness. One of them even said, "You've done half our job for us." That comment made me smile faintly. For once, my obsessive habit of keeping receipts and screenshots had become my shield. Meanwhile, Clara finally broke her silence. She called me one evening, her voice shaking for the first time since all this began. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her tone half pleading, half accusing. I paused before answering. "Because you did this to me first. You stole everything I had," and laughed in my face. "If I let it go, what lesson would you learn?" She sniffled, muttered something about not meaning harm, but I didn't let her twist the narrative. "You knew exactly what you were doing," I said firmly, "and now you'll face the consequences." Then I ended the call. I won't pretend it was easy. Nights were still long and lonely. There were moments when I doubted myself, when guilt whispered that maybe I should have let it go. But every time that thought crept in, I opened my banking app and stared at that number reminded me that silence would only enable them. As weeks passed, the weight shifted. The same relatives who mocked me started to panic. They realized this wasn't just family drama anymore. It was legal. Investigations meant records. Records meant reputations. And reputations meant jobs, social circles. even futures on the line. Slowly, the laughter that had filled the reunion turned into whispers of fear, and I knew the tide was finally turning. The calls began as a trickle, then turned into a flood. At first it was just my Aunt Miriam, her voice unusually soft. "My son, you know family makes mistakes. We don't need outsiders involved. Just forgive and move on." I let her words hang in the air before replying. "Mistakes don't repeat themselves 30 times on my bank statement." She sighed deeply, muttered a prayer under her breath, and hung up. Soon after, the messages rolled in from cousins who hadn't spoken to me in months. Some tried guilt, some tried jokes, and some even tried to bribe me with promises to pay double if I withdrew the report. I ignored most of them. They were desperate, but none of them sounded truly sorry. They were just afraid. She looked different, her usual confidence replaced with a nervous shuffle. Her eyes darted everywhere but my face, and she clutched her handbag like it contained answers. "Please," she whispered. "I can't sleep. The police keep calling. People at work are asking questions. Just withdraw the case. I'll find a way to pay you back." I studied her, searching for the sister I once trusted, but all I saw was someone who only regretted being caught, not what she had done. "Do you remember what you said to me?" I asked quietly. She blinked. I repeated her words slowly, like a knife twisting. "Be happy we used it." Her lips trembled, but she stayed silent. I shook my head. "You weren't happy when the police knocked, were you? You weren't happy when the charges linked back to you. Now you want mercy. Where was that mercy when you laughed at me?" She broke down then, sinking into my couch, sobbing into her palms. For a moment I almost wavered. The sound of her crying stirred something deep inside me, a memory of when we were children, and she would hide behind me during thunderstorms. But that memory clashed with the fresh wound she had carved. I couldn't let sentiment erase the truth. "You need to face this," I told her firmly. "It's the only way you'll learn." Statements were taken, receipts examined, and one by one my relatives were called in. Those who had boldly swiped my card now shrank under fluorescent lights, fumbling with excuses. Some tried to pin everything on Clara, saying she had given them permission to use my card. But the police didn't buy it. Each signature, each timestamp, was another nail in the coffin of their excuses. It wasn't long before formal charges were considered. By then, the entire family's mood had shifted. The same people who had mocked me at the reunion now sent endless pleas. Uncle Raymond, who once joked that I'd carry us all, called me one night with a voice stripped of humor. "Please, nephew, this thing is bigger than you realize. Our names are being dragged. If this continues, some of us could lose jobs. Can't you just settle it quietly?" I let him speak until his voice cracked, then calmly replied, "You should have thought about that before turning my account into your wallet." For the first time in my life, I felt a strange power, not the power of revenge, but of boundary. I had always been the giver, the fixer, the one who stayed quiet while others took. But now silence has been replaced with accountability. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't throw insults. I simply held the line, and that line cut deeper than any shout ever could. Weeks later, the case reached a climax. Clara was summoned formally, and though she tried to negotiate, the evidence was overwhelming. I remember sitting outside the station afterward, the sun casting long shadows across the pavement. Clara approached me, her face pale. "You really won't stop this?" she asked. I looked her in the eye, my voice steady. "I already stopped it the night I froze my account. This is just the ripple from the stone you threw." She turned away, shoulders slumped, and in that moment I realized something. She wasn't just my sister anymore. She was someone who had chosen selfishness over love, and now she was facing the cost. The family never fully recovered from that storm. Ties loosened, gatherings grew smaller, and the word trust became something everyone avoided saying out loud. Yet, for me there was a quiet healing in the chaos. I had finally drawn a line in the sand. I had finally shown them that dignity mattered more than blind loyalty. People often think forgiveness means letting people escape consequences, but I learned that real forgiveness sometimes means letting consequences run their course. So the lesson takes root. By the time the dust settled, My account was restored through insurance. My peace returned, and my voice grew stronger. I had chosen not to bend, and in that choice, I had reclaimed myself. And when I look back now, I realize that the 0-99 they left behind was more symbolic than they ever knew. It was proof that even when stripped to almost nothing, I still had enough strength to rebuild, to resist, and to rise. Moral lesson: family should be a shelter, not a trust, once broken, teaches us that love without respect is hollow. My story is not about revenge. It is about boundaries, courage, and the dignity of saying no. When betrayal comes from the people closest to you, it hurts deepest, but it also pushes you to grow strongest. To anyone listening, it's okay to feel pain, it's okay to stand your ground, and it's okay to let lessons unfold. You are not weak for protecting yourself, you are wise. Remember, love survives only where respect is honored.